Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus, and it's time to crack open Hasbro's most recent and most IDW take on the bartending metallurgist Swerve, as well as his best friend nobody knew about, Flanker. This wasn't among the first of the Generations Legends 2-packs, but it was one of the first legitimately short characters to get a Generations Legends 2-pack, so let's stop saying Generations Legends 2-pack and talk about the toys. Swerve turns into a stretched out and slightly realismed version of his G1 alt mode, taking the form of a red pickup truck with cream-colored strips of mechanical something or other in the back. It's a very pleasant trucular shape, slightly bigger than a Hot Wheels car in size, and hey, painted hubcaps! The simple paint apps are quite pleasant, picking out windows and front grille details. Sadly, triangles of red ink, one just under each side window, don't quite color match to the plastic and stick out pretty badly. By the way, there's a 5mm hole on the roof. Do with it what you will. Flanker's a teeny little aerial drone cast in navy blue plastic and bearing a couple of winglet stripes that give his alt mode just a touch of character. All things considered, the sculpt doesn't skimp out on surface details, which work with the hue of the base plastic color to catch light and naturally highlight themselves from many angles. Putting these guys next to each other, the size discrepancy is kinda weird, and I don't know why Swerve is hanging out with a little aerial drone, but they do both transform, and I really want to segue, so can we just come to an agreement on this? We can? Good. Alright, here we go. Swerve transforms in an easy and predictable way, with his main engineering feature being the cool way that the outer thirds of his torso swing down into place to avoid giving his robot mode a straight-up truck-shaped chunk of truck for a center mass. Meanwhile, Flanker lives up to his Micromaster heritage in transforming as butt-nuts simply as one could ask. 3 flips and you've got yourself a tiny robot. Whoosh! Based enormously on his appearances in the pages of IDW's More Than Meets the Eyes comic book, Swerve's robot mode is a lovely, grinning little stump of a rather annoying bartender. Yes, his shoulders are riding a little too high, but the wheel placement isn't, so I can live with it. His colors remain rather excellent, with some more silver in there to pick out his thighs and various torso detailings. And that torso forms a proper box-collared box hood around his grinning blue-visored pill-shaped head. The cream-colored paint kinda washes out the sculpted grin, but all in all, and at this scale and price point, I like how things turned out here. As for Flanker, he's very much an accessory of a robot, but one who succeeds within the confines of his limited existence. Mainly, his standing robot sculpt has got excellent implied proportions and a very decent silhouette for its mostly monopose stature. It also helps that a number of white and red paint apps break up and highlight both his face and torso. Flanker's main engineering is a double-jointed hinge that allows him to Targetmaster up, giving Swerve a fairly intimidating triple-barreled Gatling gun. The shape of this mode is really cool, and the white paint on the undersides of the wings does a decent amount to give it its own identity. Sadly, the designers had no idea about My First Blaster until it was far too late to change gears on Flanker's firearm identity. But between repro labels and the Takara Tomy Japanese release, if you really want Flanker to be a My First Blaster, you do have options. Finally, after multiple third-party attempts, the real Swerve totally has an easy, simple way to get at his head joint. This lifts up, full access to the noggin. That's great. Here's the bad news. There's no neck joint. There is a transformation joint which allows him to look, forward and backwards like this. Well, okay, more up and forward than backwards. That's neat, but holy crap, if he could swivel his neck, this would have been a transcendent little Swerve toy. Instead, he's just out of focus. Nonetheless, he's got ball-jointed little shoulders. There's a transformation joint which offers an extra 5 or so degrees of wiggle outwards. He's got ball-jointed elbows, which does mean there is a bicep swivel built in, so he can really look kind of grumpy. Well, despite the fact he's smiling. He can look real happy while he's telling you to take those goddamn guns out of his goddamn bar. There's no waist joint, unfortunately, so this guy ain't no Cosmos. But there are ball-jointed hips, and he can do the full Van Damme, so top marks there. There's a hinge knee, so no thigh swivel, but he does look pretty cool when you get his legs kind of outward splayed like this. And that's about it. There's nothing ankle-wise, there's nothing wrist-wise. He's a very nice, functional Legends Transformer as far as poseability. Man, if there was a neck joint, that would have been another level. As for Flanker, he can do this. However, due to how nice a robot there is sculpted on the underside of his alt mode, he looks pretty cool when he's doing this.
Like, he looks like proper Micromaster. He looks like he's got it going on. He looks retro in a decent way. I sure do wish he did more, but there's all this, you know, mush going on in here, which I never am able to activate when I want to show it off. Right? I feel like he pulls things off pretty well, especially if you compare him to Tailgate's little buddy, who's another, you know, new Micromaster. This guy does so much more than this guy, despite them having the exact same articulation. There's just so much more style on this guy. Really makes me happy.
Swerve and Flanker are a fine Legend with Targetmaster pairing, certainly not the best that this iteration of the price point has had to offer, but resting comfortably and solidly in the higher end of the middle. Both modes on both characters look good. They are just rather simple toys that do not bear any amazing surprises. Swerve's awesome robot mode sculpt does make him an easy recommendation to any fan of more than meets the eye, though. Which leads to the question, should you pursue this figure over Make Toys trash talk? Well, let me put it this way. One generally runs for around 10 bucks. The other comes closer to the $30 to $35 range if you cut the price of his 2-pack in half. Both fill out those costs pretty well. Go where your budget takes you. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus, and I honestly had always meant to talk about the Generations Legends 2-packs in production order, but man, I am getting tired of self-imposed reviewing rules. Go wild, baby!